Welcome to Mind Shelf. Today's story is about a man who was born with no arms and no legs, but somehow built a life with almost no limits. This video is not just about a book or a biography. It is about a question that quietly applies to everyone. What do you do when the miracle you are waiting for doesn't come? Nick Vujicic's answer became the title of his first chapter. If you can't get a miracle, become one. Chapter 1 is built around one idea that Nick repeats again and again. If the miracle you're waiting for doesn't arrive, you can decide to become a miracle yourself. Nick was born without arms and without legs. As he writes, for many years that didn't feel like a calling. It felt like a sentence. He was bullied at school, stared at in public, and haunted by thoughts that he would never work, never be independent, never be loved. The pain went so deep that as a child, he even tried to end his life, convinced there was no future for someone like him. The turning point did not come from a medical miracle. His body didn't change. What changed was his answer to a question. Where does my life actually end? At my skin? Or in what I give to other people? When he began speaking to small groups about his struggles and his faith, he saw something unexpected. People with normal bodies started crying, opening up, and saying that his story gave them strength to face their own problems. That was the moment he understood his own quote, "If you can't get a miracle, become one." In his view, a miracle is not only a sudden cure or a lottery win. A miracle can be a human life that shouldn't make sense on paper, but still shines with purpose, humor, and love. He decided that if he couldn't change his physical condition, he would let his response to it become proof that the human spirit is bigger than any diagnosis. In this chapter, the author is very direct. Most of the limits that hold people back are not on their body, but in their mind and heart. He writes that you can't always control what happens to you, but you can take responsibility for what you do next. Waiting forever for life to become easier, for perfect circumstances or perfect confidence, is just another way of giving away your power. Instead, he invites the reader to flip the logic. Rather than asking, "When will my miracle come?" ask, "For whom could my life become a miracle if I refuse to give up?" That might mean being the one person in your family who breaks a destructive pattern, the friend who listens when everyone else is busy, or the stranger whose resilience gives someone else permission to keep going. Nick's own faith is a big part of how he explains this. He describes hope as a gift, and faith as full assurance in the heart that there is a purpose, even when you can't see it yet. For him, trusting God did not mean sitting still and waiting for limbs to grow. It meant acting as if his life had value now, speaking, traveling, trying, failing, and returning to the stage anyway. From the author's perspective, becoming a miracle is less about big speeches and more about everyday decisions. You become a miracle when you choose to believe there is more ahead than what you see today, when you take the next small step instead of repeating the same excuse, and when you let your scars become a source of empathy instead of a reason to close your heart. In the end, Chapter 1 leaves the reader with a quiet challenge. Your circumstances may not change overnight, but your role in your own story can. You can stay the person waiting in the dark for something to happen, or you can start becoming the reason someone else believes that hope is real. Chapter 2 takes the most visible fact about Nick's life, no arms, no legs, and uses it to challenge what limits really mean. On the outside, his condition looks like a full stop. On the inside, He decided it would be a starting point. He describes how people around him, often without meaning harm, assumed there were countless things he would never do: swim, type, work, travel, live independently. For a while, he believed them, and his world shrank to what others imagined for him. The turning point came when he began to test those assumptions one by one and discovered that many impossible things were just difficult, not truly impossible. With time and practice, he learned to swim, to move on his own, to use technology, and to take care of basic daily tasks in his own way. Each new skill didn't just make life easier. It dismantled an inner belief that his body automatically meant no. The more he experimented, the more he saw that his real limits were much further out than he'd been told. In this chapter, the author shares a clear opinion. Most people with fully able bodies live more restricted lives than he does, because their limitations live in their mindset, not in their muscles. Fear of failure, fear of looking foolish, old criticism. These become invisible walls that keep them from trying. His message is not, "You have no limits at all," but "You probably have far fewer limits than you think if you are willing to be uncomfortable and persistent." Chapter 3 is built around one word Nick unpacks in his own way: faith, full assurance in the heart. He admits he can't prove everything he believes, but he feels more alive living with faith than he ever did living in doubt and despair. For him, faith is not blind optimism or ignoring pain. It's a decision to trust that there is a purpose and a path, even when he cannot see how it will work out. Born without arms and legs, he spent years demanding answers from God. Why me? Why this body? And refusing to trust until he understood everything. The breakthrough came when he realized the real question coming back to him was, do you trust me, even if you don't get all the answers? In this chapter, the author shares that faith became his inner anchor. It did not change his physical condition, but it changed how he walked through every challenge: bullying, loneliness, fear about the future. With complete confidence in his heart, he started acting as if his life had value and meaning now, not someday when everything looked perfect. His message for the reader is simple. You may not control the size of your problems, but you can choose what you place your confidence in: fear, or the possibility that your life is meant for more than you see today. Chapter 4 is about something many people with perfect bodies still struggle with: looking in the mirror and actually liking the person they see there. Nick calls this learning to love the perfectly imperfect you. Not someday when you fix everything, but starting from who you are right now. He shares a story about a successful businessman who spoke to him after an event. On the outside, the man had everything: money, status, respect. But he was desperate because his 14-year-old daughter hated her own reflection, called herself ugly, and couldn't see any of the beauty and talent her father saw in her. Nick realized how many people live like that girl, surrounded by proof they are valuable, but unable to feel it. The author's opinion is very clear. You can't build a good life on top of self-disgust. If, deep down, you believe you are not enough, you will sabotage opportunities, push away love, and compare yourself to everyone around you. He doesn't say you are flawless. He says your value is not canceled by your flaws. His advice is simple but uncomfortable. Stop waiting to become perfect before you start treating yourself with basic kindness. Notice the way you talk to yourself, especially about your looks, your abilities, your past, and then ask, would I ever say this to someone I care about? If the answer is no, it's time to change the tone. According to Nick, when you begin to accept and use what you do have instead of obsessing over what you don't, you lay the foundation for real confidence, deeper peace, and stronger relationships. Chapter 5 is about one thing Nick keeps repeating on stage and on the page. Your circumstances are real, but your attitude decides what they mean and what happens next. He likes to say, attitude is altitude. The mindset you choose determines how high your life can actually go. He openly admits that staying positive is not easy when you are born without arms and legs. There were days when he felt humiliated, lonely, and tired of trying. But he noticed something. On days when he chose gratitude, action, and humor, his situation didn't magically change, yet his experience of it became completely different. The same body, the same challenges, but a different story running in his head. In this chapter, the author highlights 4 key attitudes that changed his life: gratitude, action, empathy, and forgiveness. Gratitude kept him from drowning in self-pity. Action pushed him to try instead of just wishing. Empathy turned his pain into a bridge to other people. Forgiveness freed him from living as a permanent victim of bullies or unfair moments. His opinion is clear. Victimhood is an easy place to hide, but it slowly kills your power. You can always find a reason to say, life is unfair. And you might even be right. But staying there will never move you forward. Nick suggests a different question. Given that this is my reality, what attitude will help me grow through it instead of being crushed by it? For the viewer, the quiet challenge of Chapter 5 is to notice your default attitude when something goes wrong. Do you automatically complain, blame, and give up? Or do you pause, breathe, and look for the next small step? According to Nick, you can't always choose what happens, but you can always choose whether your attitude makes you heavier or helps you rise. Thank you for being here and sharing this moment with me. If these words spoke to your heart, subscribe and stay with us. The next chapters of growth, faith, and self-love are waiting for you here.